housing finance companies are likely to witness a growth of 8 to 10% in fiscal 2022. What is the role being played by IT in their growth?
I think there are two main problems that it is trying to solve when you talk about housing. One is identifying the right population that can be targeted by a particular consumer. So a lot of activities is going into, for example, what all availabilities are there in a particular vicinity, be it either in under construction or planned or in ready to move kind of properties. So a lot of technology based interventions are happening to make that product available to the vendor at the right point in time. And the second is around, for example, the entire financing bit as to how the ease of financing can come to the fore. So, for example, when we are talking about the same platforms which are providing search-based results, they are also offering financing options there, so that the vendor, so that the consumer doesn't have to go elsewhere, and he can also understand basis certain quick questions asked. He can understand his eligibility also with regards to the financing as to what is the kind of leverage he can take, and what is the kind of rate that he would incur, what could be his repayment terms, and so it's largely around managing the demand and also trying to support the transactions. So these are the two main areas, and I think it is largely becoming very localized. Importantly, because you want to have the very specific nuances when you're looking, especially for property where you're not investing but you're looking to stay. So a lot of interventions around what are things are there in the vicinity, for example, schools, hospitals, theaters, malls, those kind of things, and what is, for example, the living index in that area, what kind of people are occupying that from, say, a social and from an economic strata perspective. So these kind of interventions are something that are taking the fore today.
How new technologies can be adopted to enhance the way financial services are delivered?
The identification of the service. The second is the actual process of trying to avail the service, and the third is the service delivery. A lot of interventions, for example, when you talk about availability, like I mentioned, a lot of marketplaces are coming to the fore. A lot of embedded widgets, etc., are coming into the right platforms today. For example, when you do certain searches on certain platforms, those widgets help you with providing those options then and there, which you can consume from or at least evaluate. The second, with regards to the onboarding of the service, and I think one of the biggest pain points there used to be the KYC part, or the know your customer part, where a lot of back and forth time investment, document exchange, corrections, and a lot of time used to take in physical movement, and that was something that was not exactly well appreciated by the consumer. So a lot of eKYC kind of solutions today, which use either artificial intelligence to study the document that is submitted, or even video KYC, that is happening, where people are sitting across the table in the comforts of their houses, and these facilities are getting availed. A lot of documentation with regards to the leveraging of the finance, with regards to providing supporting documents, and also identifying what could be the rate of interest, etc. I think these are the areas which are attacked, and then the final delivery option is something that the consumer wishes to have. For example, how can I squeeze the time to delivery? So people today are talking about loan in 15 minutes, for example. So while it may not be 15 minutes, but it is very, very less. The elapsed time is very, very less compared to what it used to be. So that's where I think a lot of customer experience based transformations are happening, where you are using data which is available largely on open internet or from certain source databases, and you're leveraging that data to be able to understand the consumer better and make the right offering to him.
Breaking down the data silos continues to be a challenge as different business units own different parts of the customer lifecycle. How can a financial service firm solve this problem?
Companies today, and not just in financial services, I would say, but a lot of consumer-oriented industries, especially, are investing in something called as a customer-oriented operating model. So what it does is it puts the customer at the center, and then it puts every interacting department around it to understand what the interaction points could be, what the moments of truth could be, where the wow factors can be delivered. And then the applications or the capabilities are being either leveraged from off-the-shelf products or being custom built to be able to service the customer better. And then there is a constant endeavor towards something called as the customer 360-degree view, which basically means that it is one view of the customer which tells you everything about right from A to Z, right from the time you ingested the customer till the time you are transacting and you offboard the customer. And then they are investing in something called as the customer lifetime value. or the CLTV as it is called as. So I think these are some of the operating models or some of the ways or frameworks which the companies today are employing, so that there is one face presented to the customer, and the customer really doesn't feel that he has to talk to multiple people within the same company to be able to get the same thing done. So it is largely in three areas, and interventions are either in on the people part, as to, for example, providing one key account manager for a particular customer, and then he takes care, he works back internally with everyone else that he has to do with. The second is the process part of it, where, like I said, that you invest in a customer centric operating model, and then you revisit all your processes, or you do a re-engineering to be able to become more customer friendly. And the last is the technology part, where you're investing in applications which can leverage or provide capabilities across the board, or at least it is something which is modular enough to be able to enable data exchange or APIs, and then there is still one particular ESP that is serving the entire customer base.
How can CIOs of financial service firms upgrade their IT infrastructure while keeping IT spending in check?
It is not just the cost; it is also the regulatory aspect that comes into picture when it comes to financial services. And today companies are, extremely vigilant about the way, and we are already talking about a Data Privacy Act coming in very soon, which talks about how the sensitive data is to be handled and how data is to be safeguarded. So that's a very real challenge. So I think there are two aspects to it. For example, if you talk about data, then you can look at it in two parts. One is the data privacy part of it, and another data security part of it. And the data privacy part largely deals with the classification of data. So if you look at data, then whether what is personal, what is confidential, what is publicly available, what is internal use only. So the right kind of tagging needs to be done, and then that data needs to be stored either at rest or in motion. It needs to be safeguarded in the same manner. And then there is security part of it, which largely deals with the infrastructure part, as to what kind of platforms you're adopting and how secure they are, where they store their data. Is it public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and what kind of capabilities it is using to safeguard the data in terms of the security. So, what kind of firewalls, what kind of security postures you're talking about, what kind of application frameworks are there, what are the restrictions on data exchange, how the data is encrypted and saved, and how it is being consumed. So a lot of capabilities are being, and then I think something that works across both is the entire aspect of identity and access management. So identity is something which deals with data, and access which looks internally. So it is a very real challenge, but I think the way to approach it best, it would be to firstly classify the data and understand what data you are holding, comply to the regulatory frameworks in the backdrop of the data that you are holding once it is classified, and then look at security from a security posture perspective, and ensure that all your infrastructure is basically complying to that posture.
What are the major hurdles faced by financial services firms while going digital? How can they be overcome?
There are always three levers that impact transformation. It is the people, process, and the technology. And there are capabilities which impair you in each of these areas. So for example, if you talk about people, let's start with that. Then I think the organization culture plays a very important role, and there is some bit of inertia, especially for companies that have been around for a very long period of time, and they are used to working in a particular way. In that case, it becomes very difficult for people to adopt to a new way of working altogether, because digital is largely, it is talking about augmenting the human capabilities. So you need to be able to give away a part of what you are doing and trust the technology to be able to do that part, and then consume from technology and make that decision. It's largely around decision making, right? And trying to improve the productivity and reduce the cost. So somewhere it is seen as a threat also. It's an age old issue to say that, okay, is technology here to replace people? Is technology reliable when it comes to making financial decisions? So these are all the cultural or the mindset issues, and they can only be proven by deploying the technology and showing the value of the technology, to say that, okay, for example, you were doing this work in a particular way before, but with technology, it is able to do it better, faster, or at a lower cost, and it basically frees up your bandwidth to be able to do something else, add value somewhere else. And then the second aspect is around reskilling people. Because you can't keep replacing talent with the technology advent. There will be a point in time where you'll have to look at adopting the newer technology by reskilling the people. So again, that's where the cultural aspect comes into the picture, as to how open your workforce is to be able to learn something new, and at what point in time, at what point of their careers they are to be able to adopt it. So that's the people part of it. Then comes the process part, where you always think that a particular thing always needs to be done in a particular way. For example, you always need three levels of approval, or you always need three signatures to be able to pass a particular file that is at your table. Whereas technology can tell you that, okay, you possibly need only one level of approval, and the other two can be approvals by exception. where you have present data points to say that okay, this is largely compliant, and there's a green channel. Adopt that green channel largely for whatever cases that don't need those kind of approvals, and only look at approvals by exception. And the last part is the technology part, where the enterprises may have invested in particular technologies, and then they find it not so prudent to move away from them for multiple reasons. It could be for reasons of cost, it could be for reasons of comfort, or it could be for reasons of purely fear, because we are dealing with people's finances here. So how will that technology pan out? And for example, what could be the backlash in case that technology doesn't? We heard of apps going down today, right? For some of the largest organizations, and it doesn't reflect too well on the company's reputation also. So these are some of the factors which hinder the digital transformation.
Financial service firms are prime targets for cybercrime because of the sensitive data they carry. What should be the approach to attain a strong security posture?
That's a tough one. There is nothing called a perfect security posture, but it's important to understand the value of data that you're holding. And while you mentioned that financial services are today exposed to the risk, I think manufacturing companies are equally exposed to the risk. And you're seeing more and more attacks on the manufacturing concerns today compared to the financial services. So it's important to peg a value to the data that you're holding. It's important to understand the regulatory framework and the compliances, and understand the cost of non-compliance, more importantly. To say that, okay, if you wouldn't comply or if there is a breach, then what is it that you're exposing yourselves to? So firstly, the definition of the security posture itself is something that they need to crack, or any financial organization needs to crack. And once that security posture is defined, then it basically defines a grade of security that you're looking at. If you were to classify security on various levels, whether it is grade A, grade B, grade C, then that will tell you as to what grade of security you need to comply with. And from that grade of security, you need to work backwards to understand what kind of products you need to invest in, and what kind of flexibility they will provide, what kind of roadmap do they have, and how, and what do they think about the way this space is going to grow over a period of, say, next 2 to 3 years. Invest in those capabilities, maybe in a modular manner, keep evolving, and because this is not a static posture that you can take. Very frequently companies define a security posture, and then it is left to either annual reviews or maybe biannual reviews, and by that time it becomes obsolete very soon. So it is important to be able to review it very soon. And the third part is, very importantly, you need to test that security posture in a very timely manner. You have your red teams, blue teams, and you try to simulate situations, try to simulate attacks, try to simulate data breaches, and then see as to how you are faring against them. What is the kind of awareness that your company carries regarding the data breaches? For example, something like phishing. You may have the best of the products, but if your people are not educated enough, or they are not aware enough to understand that not to click any malware email, how to identify whether an email is suspicious in the first place. While you can always augment with tools, you need to understand that the breachers are also augmenting themselves with capabilities to breach those tools. So at some point in time, you will have to rely on the wisdom of the people who are inside the ecosystem or inside the enterprise to be able to make a judgmental call as to what is the best reaction to a particular situation that comes to their point. So I think a lot of awareness, a lot of investment needs to be made in cyber awareness. A lot of awareness, a lot of investments need to be made into making the right drills for different levels of people. You cannot have one module that complies to everybody. For example, the senior management, the middle management, the junior management, all of them need to understand the nuances of security as it applies to their job context, and to be able to react in a particular manner, be familiar with the SOPs that are put in place. So these are some of the aspects. While it is a very broad topic, these are some of the aspects that need to be kept in mind.
How do you see the future of the financial services with regard to adoption of new technologies?
In the recent past, at least, has been one of the sectors that has been very open to technology. I think you would see a lot of technology interventions, a lot of new ideas, a lot of unicorns, a lot of startups in the area of consumer finance, in the area of consumer technology, right? So the entire consumer aspect of financing. And for example, you talk about the creds of the world, you talk about the number of other applications which enable payments. The mobile wallets are there. A lot of financing applications today, a lot of companies who's investing in doing the credit scores very, very differently from the way it is traditionally done. So I think this is one domain that will see a lot of action as far as technology is concerned, because a lot of companies in this area, or practically maybe 90% or more, are digital first companies, whereby they are adopting the newer ways of working. They're adopting technology as a core offering, and they are adopting digital as the way they would want to be seen by the consumer. And they have that jazz factor attached to them to say that they are not an age-old organization, they are a new age organization. So I think a lot of the technology, a lot of new technology introduction and adoption is expected to happen in this particular domain.